Imagine this. You're in a conversation, and suddenly your mind goes blank. You know the words, you understand English, but when it's time to speak, you freeze. You feel stuck, searching for the right sentence, afraid of making mistakes. If this sounds familiar, then you're in the right place. What if I told you that there's one simple skill that can unlock your fluency, make your English flow naturally, and help you speak with confidence? That skill is storytelling. Think about it. The best speakers, the most interesting people, the ones who capture attention, all of them tell great stories. A good story pulls people in, keeps them engaged, and makes your words more powerful. And here's the secret. You don't need perfect grammar, big words, or years of study to be a great storyteller. You just need to learn how to share your experiences in a way that feels natural. In this video, I'm going to show you how storytelling can transform your English fluency, step by step. You will learn how to think in English, how to speak without hesitation, how to make even simple moments sound interesting, and how to develop fluency naturally. By the time you finish this lesson, you'll have the power to speak English smoothly, effortlessly, and with confidence. You won't just learn words. You'll learn how to express yourself in a way that people love to listen to. So, if you're ready to break free from fear and hesitation, if you want to speak English naturally, and if you want to develop fluency in a way that's fun and exciting, then stay until the end of this video. Because this isn't just another English lesson. This is the key to unlocking the way you speak forever. Let's begin. Storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to improve your English fluency. It allows you to express your thoughts naturally, without overthinking grammar or vocabulary. When you tell a story, you focus more on the meaning and the emotions behind your words, rather than trying to be perfect. This is why great speakers and fluent English speakers use stories to connect with others. Think about the last time you listened to an interesting story. You likely felt engaged, curious, or even emotional. That's because stories help people understand and remember ideas better. If you want to improve your English fluency, mastering the art of storytelling is one of the best ways to do it. Let me share a story with you. A few years ago, my friend Jacob wanted to improve his English. He knew many words and understood grammar well, but every time he tried to speak, he would get stuck. He told me, "I know what I want to say, but when I open my mouth, my mind goes blank." He felt frustrated and nervous whenever he had to talk in English. One day, I asked him to tell me a simple story from his own life. He looked confused and said, "A story? But I don't have an interesting story to tell." I told him, "It doesn't need to be interesting. Just tell me about something that happened to you recently." He thought for a moment and started talking about the time he went to a coffee shop and accidentally ordered the wrong drink. At first he spoke slowly, pausing between sentences, searching for words. He hesitated a lot, but the more he spoke, the more comfortable he became. By the end of his short story, he was speaking fluently without even realizing it. That was when he had a big realization, when he focused on telling a story rather than worrying about making mistakes. He spoke more naturally. After that day, he practiced storytelling every day. He started with small, simple stories. Some were about his daily experiences, things he saw, or conversations with his friends. He spoke to himself in English. He recorded his stories, and little by little, he became more fluent. In just a few months, his confidence in speaking grew, and he was no longer afraid of making mistakes. This is the power of storytelling. It removes the fear of speaking. It allows you to practice fluency in a natural, enjoyable way. When you tell a story, you are not just using words. You are expressing feelings, thoughts, and experiences. This is why storytelling is one of the best ways to improve your spoken English skills. When you start practicing storytelling, the biggest question is often, what story should I tell? The good news is you don't need a big, complex story to practice. Even the simplest moments from your daily life can be turned into great stories. Think about something that made you smile, something that surprised you, or something you learned recently. These small experiences can make great storytelling practice. For example, let me tell you about something that happened to me last week. I was walking in the park when I saw a little boy trying to fly a kite. The wind was strong, and he was struggling to keep the kite in the air. He kept running, trying again and again, but every time the kite would fall to the ground. After watching him struggle for a few minutes, an old man, who had been sitting on a bench, walked over and gave him some advice. He showed him how to hold the string and how to release it at the right time. The boy listened carefully, tried again, and this time the kite stayed in the air. He laughed with excitement as it soared high above him. That small moment made me think about learning English. Just like flying a kite, speaking English takes practice. Sometimes you struggle, sometimes it feels difficult, but if you keep going, if you get the right advice, you will improve. Watching that boy reminded me that mistakes are part of learning. The more you try, the better you get. Now think of a moment like this from your own life. It doesn't have to be dramatic or life-changing. It can be something small that made you feel happy, nervous, excited, or even frustrated. When you start telling these small stories, you are practicing fluency without even thinking about it. One of the most important parts of storytelling is creating a clear picture for your listener. Imagine you are telling a friend about your favorite memory. Instead of just saying, "I went to the beach and it was fun," try to describe it more vividly. I walked barefoot on the warm sand, feeling the cool waves touch my feet. The sound of the seagulls and the salty ocean breeze made me feel completely relaxed. When you add details like touch, sound, and smell, your story becomes much more engaging. Let's try this right now. Think of a simple event from your day. Maybe you had a nice cup of tea this morning. Maybe you took a walk in the afternoon. Or maybe you saw something interesting on your way home. Now describe it with more details. What did you see? What did you hear? How did it make you feel? Practicing this will help you learn to express yourself more clearly in English. Another great technique for storytelling is using dialogue. Instead of saying, "My friend told me she was excited about her new job," try saying, "My friend called me and said, 'I got the job. I can't believe it.'" Her voice was full of excitement. Adding dialogue makes your story feel more alive. It helps the audience imagine the real conversation. A simple way to practice this is to think about a conversation you had recently and try to retell it in English. Imagine you are explaining it to someone who wasn't there. How would you tell the story? What words would you use? By practicing this, you are improving your storytelling and fluency at the same time. The more you practice storytelling, the easier speaking English becomes. When you focus on telling a story, your brain naturally starts forming sentences without worrying too much about grammar. You begin to think in English instead of translating from your native language. This is one of the biggest steps toward fluency. At the end of the day, the goal of learning English is not just about knowing grammar or vocabulary. It's about being able to communicate, to express yourself, to share your thoughts and experiences with others. Storytelling helps you do that in a way that feels natural and enjoyable. Imagine you are in a job interview, and they ask you, "Tell me about a challenge you faced and how you handled it." If you have practiced storytelling, you will be able to answer smoothly with confidence. If you are at a party and meeting new people, telling a short, interesting story can help you connect and make friends. If you plan to speak on stage or make a video, storytelling will keep your audience engaged and interested. The ability to tell a good story will not only improve your English, it will also make you a better communicator in every part of life. The more you practice, the better you get. Let's pause here for now, but this is just the beginning. In the next part, we will continue with more techniques and deeper ways to make your storytelling even more fluent, natural, and expressive. Stay with me, because we are just getting started. One of the biggest reasons why many people struggle to speak English is fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of not finding the right words, fear of sounding unnatural. But here's what most people don't realize. Mistakes are part of learning. Every fluent speaker was once a beginner. Every great storyteller started with simple words. The only way to become fluent is to keep speaking, even when it feels uncomfortable. Once you accept that making mistakes is normal, storytelling becomes much easier. Imagine a child learning to speak. They don't worry about grammar or perfect sentences. They just try, repeat, and learn naturally. That's exactly how you should approach storytelling. The more you tell stories, the more natural your speech becomes. Instead of thinking, "What if I say something wrong?" start thinking, "Let me share something interesting." When your focus shifts from worrying about mistakes to enjoying the story, your fluency improves automatically. Now let me share another powerful method to make storytelling easier: connecting emotions to your story. Every great story has one key ingredient that keeps people interested: emotion. People don't just remember words. They remember how a story made them feel. Whether it's excitement, happiness, surprise, or even sadness, emotions bring a story to life. Let me prove this to you with two versions of the same story. The first version: I lost my phone yesterday, but I found it later. Now the second version: yesterday I had the biggest panic of my life. I checked my pockets, my bag, the table. My phone was gone. My heart started racing. I thought to myself, did I leave it at the cafe? Did someone take it? I ran back to the cafe, and there it was, sitting on the chair where I had been. The moment I saw it, I let out the biggest sigh of relief. I laughed at myself for panicking so much. Which version makes you feel something? The second one, right? That's because it doesn't just state facts. It makes the listener experience the moment. Storytelling becomes powerful when you allow the audience to feel what you felt. Here's how you can bring emotions into your storytelling. First, relive the moment in your mind. Before you tell a story, close your eyes and imagine being in that moment again. Think about how you felt at that time. Were you excited, nervous, surprised? When you remember the feeling, it will naturally show in your words and voice. Second, use emotional expressions. Instead of just saying, "I was happy," describe the happiness. Did you smile? Did your heart beat faster? Did you feel light as a feather? The more detailed your emotions, the more real your story feels. Third, change the way you speak. Your voice should match the emotion of the story. If your story is exciting, speak with energy. If it's sad, slow down your words. If it's suspenseful, pause for a moment before revealing what happens next. Your tone of voice is just as important as the words you use. Let's try another quick practice. Think of a moment when you felt nervous. Maybe it was before an exam, before a speech, or before meeting someone new. Now try to describe that moment. Instead of just saying, "I was nervous," explain what was happening inside you. Did your hands feel cold? Did your heart beat loudly? Did you take a deep breath? These details make your story more powerful. The magic of storytelling is that it makes learning English feel real. You are not just memorizing words and rules. You are using the language to express your own experiences. This is why storytelling is one of the fastest ways to become fluent. Let me share another story with you. I once had a student named Mia. Mia loved reading books in English, but when it came to speaking, she always struggled. She knew a lot of words, but she spoke very slowly, always searching for the perfect sentence. One day, I asked Mia to tell me about her childhood in English, not worrying about correct grammar, just speaking freely. At first she spoke with hesitation, stopping often, but as she kept going, she forgot about her fear and started speaking more fluently. She remembered small details from her childhood that she had never tried to say in English before. After that, I gave her a challenge. Every day, for 1 week, she had to tell a short story, either about her day, something from her past, or even an imaginary story. She accepted the challenge. On the first day, she struggled. On the second day, she was still trying hard to find words. But by the end of the week, something amazing happened. She spoke smoothly without stopping. She was thinking in English naturally. This proves one important thing. Fluency does not come from knowing more words. It comes from using the words you already know until they become natural. So here's a challenge for you. Every day for the next 5 days, tell a short story in English. It doesn't have to be long. It can be just 30 seconds. Talk about how your day went. Describe something you saw, or recall a childhood memory. The more you do this, the easier speaking becomes. Another great way to improve storytelling fluency is to share stories with friends or family. If you have a friend who is also learning English, practice together. Take turns telling each other short stories. You don't even need a complicated topic. Just start with something as simple as, "What's the most interesting thing that happened to you this week?" If you don't have someone to practice with, use your phone. Record yourself telling a story, then listen to it. Notice how your voice sounds, which parts were smooth, and which parts needed improvement. The next time you tell the same story, it will be even better. Repetition is key. The more you repeat a story, the better it sounds. Professional speakers and storytellers don't tell a story just once. They practice it multiple times until it flows naturally. The first time, you may struggle. The second time, it becomes easier. The third time, it sounds natural. Whenever you tell a story, you are training your brain to think in English. If you ever feel like your stories are too simple, remember this. A simple story told well is far more powerful than a complex story told poorly. Even the most ordinary moments in life can become amazing stories if you tell them in an engaging way. Take a moment now and think of a story you can share. Maybe a childhood adventure, a funny mistake, or a time you learned a valuable lesson. Take your time. Picture it clearly in your mind, then start speaking about it in English, even if no one is listening. The more you do this, the more fluent and confident you will become. Let's pause here, but we are not done. In the next part, we'll dive even deeper into using storytelling in real conversations, interviews, public speaking, and daily life. The journey to fluency is not about learning harder. It's about speaking more, sharing more, and enjoying the process. Remember, the more you speak, the more natural it becomes. The more you tell stories, the more fluent you feel. Keep going, because your fluency is improving with every step. Many people think storytelling is only for writers, public speakers, or entertainers, but the truth is, we tell stories all the time. When we share experiences with friends, explain something to a colleague, or even when we meet new people, if you can improve the way you tell stories, you will notice a huge improvement in how smoothly you communicate in English. One of the most practical uses of storytelling is daily conversation. Imagine you are at a cafe with a friend, and they ask you, "How was your weekend?" You have two choices in how you respond. The first response, "It was good. I went out with friends. We had food. That's all." Now the second response, "Oh, my weekend was really fun. On Saturday I met some friends for dinner. We went to this small restaurant in the city that serves wood-fired pizza. The funny part, one of my friends accidentally ordered a super spicy pizza, and his face turned red after one bite. We all laughed so much." Which response sounds more interesting? The second one, right? That's because it turns a simple event into a small story. When you add details, emotions, and a little humor, you make even a normal conversation more engaging. This is why storytelling is such a useful skill. It makes you a better communicator. People love listening to stories. If you get good at sharing small, interesting stories in your daily conversations, people will enjoy talking to you, and you will feel much more confident speaking English. Another place where storytelling is extremely useful is in job interviews. In many interviews, the interviewer will ask questions like, "Tell me about a time you faced a challenge," Or can you share an example of a time you worked in a team? If you can answer with a well-structured story, you will leave a strong impression. Let's take an example. Suppose you are asked, "Tell me about a time you handled a difficult situation at work." A simple answer might be, "One time we had a project deadline, and my team was not ready, so I stayed late and worked harder. In the end, we finished it." But now let's turn that into a powerful story. It was 2 days before the project deadline, and our team was behind schedule. Everyone was stressed, and it felt like we wouldn't make it. I decided to take the lead and suggest a different approach. I gathered my team, we divided the tasks, and we worked with full focus. For 2 days, we stayed late, helped each other, and put all our effort into the project. When the final day arrived, we submitted the project just on time, and our manager was really impressed. That experience taught me that teamwork and good planning can solve even the most stressful problems. This response is much better because it follows a clear storytelling structure. It sets up the problem, shows the action taken, and concludes with the result. When interviewers hear well-structured stories, they remember you better, and they can see your real skills and abilities. You can use this same strategy for any common interview question. Instead of giving short, direct answers, try to turn your response into a short but engaging story. Not only will this make you stand out, but it will also make you feel more confident during the interview. Storytelling is also a powerful tool in public speaking. Imagine you are giving a presentation or a speech in front of a group of people. One of the best ways to get attention right away is to start with a story. Instead of beginning with something formal like, "Today, I will talk about success," imagine starting like this. When I was 10 years old, I tried to ride a bicycle for the first time. I was so excited. I got on the bike, pushed off, and immediately fell. I tried again, fell again, and again. I fell probably 20 times that day, but on the 21st time, I finally found my balance and rode my bike. That day, I learned the most important lesson of my life. Failure is just a step toward success. See how that immediately grabs attention. Stories make your message stronger. Whether you are speaking in a meeting, presenting in class, or giving a speech, using storytelling makes your audience feel more connected to what you're saying. But storytelling isn't only useful in professional situations. It helps in social situations, too. Imagine you meet someone for the first time, and they ask you, "Tell me about yourself." Many people answer in a way that feels robotic. "My name is Aiden. I am from Canada, and I work as a teacher." But what if you turned it into a small story? "Oh, where do I start? My love for teaching started when I was a kid. I remember playing pretend school with my younger brother, and I was always the teacher. Years later, I realized that helping people learn was my real passion, so I became a teacher. Now I can't imagine doing anything else." That answer is not only more engaging, but also more memorable. It reveals personality, adds background, and immediately makes the conversation feel more natural. The way you tell stories in social situations can make people feel more drawn to you. If you tell a funny story, people laugh and enjoy talking to you. If you share an inspiring story, people feel motivated. If you tell a personal story, people feel more connected to you. This is how storytelling helps you build better relationships with others. If you're wondering how to practice storytelling more effectively, here's a simple exercise to help. Think of a normal situation from your week. Maybe standing in line at a store, getting caught in the rain, or cooking something new. Now imagine turning that situation into a short, interesting story. For example, instead of saying, "I waited a long time in line at the store," you could say, "So there I was, standing in the supermarket with my arms full of groceries. The line was moving so slowly, I thought I would grow old before I reached the cashier. Just when I was about to give up, a little old lady behind me tapped my shoulder and said, 'Patience, young man. Good things take time.' I couldn't help but laugh. That small moment made my day. See how much more engaging a normal moment becomes when you bring it to life. Every day, small things happen that can be turned into short, interesting stories. The more you practice telling these short experiences in an engaging way, the more fluent and natural your English speaking will become. Remember, fluency is not about speaking fast or using complex words. It's about speaking naturally and confidently. Storytelling helps you do that because it trains your brain to form sentences smoothly, instead of stopping to think of the right words or worrying about grammar. Storytelling allows you to express yourself freely. The next time you have a conversation, try adding a small story. It could be something funny, something surprising, or even something simple, but told in an engaging way. The more you do this, the more confident and fluent you will feel in English. We are not done yet. In the next part, we will explore how to train your brain to think in English through storytelling, how to improve your delivery, and the secret to making any story more interesting. Keep going, because you are already improving with every step. The more you practice, the more natural storytelling becomes. The more you share experiences, the more confident your English gets. One of the biggest challenges for English learners is thinking in English instead of translating from their native language. When you rely on translation in your head before speaking, it slows you down, and your sentences may not sound natural. But storytelling can train your brain to think directly in English, making your speech faster and smoother. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and instead of thinking, "What should I eat for breakfast?" in your native language, you practice thinking the same question directly in English. "What should I eat for breakfast?" Doing this regularly helps your brain get used to forming English sentences without needing to translate. But how does storytelling help with this? Simple. When you tell a story over and over again, your brain begins to remember the sentences in English. Let's say you tell the same story 3 times today. Once to a friend, once to yourself in front of a mirror, and once as a voice recording. Each time, you will get faster and more natural because your brain is practicing the flow of sentences in English. Here's an exercise to help. Choose a personal experience. maybe a childhood memory or something that happened last week, and try telling it in English without stopping. Even if you make mistakes, keep going. Then tell the same story again, trying to improve it a little. The more you do this, the more automatic English speech becomes. Now let's talk about storytelling delivery. Telling a great story is not just about the words you use. It's about how you say them. A boring delivery can make even the most exciting story sound dull, while an expressive delivery can turn a simple moment into a captivating experience. Think of your voice like music. Sometimes it should be louder, sometimes softer, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. These variations help keep your audience engaged. For example, imagine you are telling a story about almost missing a flight. You could say, "I was late for my flight. I ran through the airport. I was nervous. I got to the gate just in time." Now let's bring it to life with better delivery. "I checked my watch. Only 15 minutes until my flight took off. I grabbed my bag and ran through the airport, dodging people left and right. My heart was pounding. Would I make it?" As I reached the gate, the flight attendant smiled and said, "You're lucky. We were just about to close the doors." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. I had made it just in time. See how the pacing, emotions, and suspense make it more exciting. Your voice, expressions, and pauses matter just as much as the words in your story. Try this exercise. Take a simple sentence like, "It was an exciting day," and say it in different ways. Once with excitement, once slowly with curiosity, and once as if you're revealing a big secret. Notice how changing the way you say something affects how people feel when they listen to you. Another tip for improving storytelling is using body language. Have you ever noticed that great storytellers don't just use words? They use their hands, facial expressions, and even movements to bring the story to life. A small smile, a raised eyebrow, or a quick movement can make a story more dynamic. Imagine you are telling a story about something surprising. Instead of just saying, "I was shocked," show it. Raise your eyebrows, open your eyes wide, and lean forward a little. Your audience will feel more engaged because they can see the emotion in your body language. Even if you're just practicing alone, stand in front of a mirror and watch yourself as you tell a story. Are you using your hands? Is your face showing emotion? The more expressive you become, the more interesting your storytelling will be. Now there's one final secret to making any story more interesting. Relatability. A story doesn't have to be dramatic or extraordinary to be engaging. It just has to be something people can relate to. For example, you don't need to travel the world to have a great story. Something as simple as the struggle of waking up early can become a funny, engaging story if told the right way. Let's take an example. Instead of saying, "I hate waking up early," let's turn it into a relatable story. "This morning my alarm rang at 6 a.m. I opened my eyes, looked at the clock, and thought, no way, 5 more minutes. I hit snooze, then snooze again. Suddenly I opened my eyes and, oh no, it was 7 a.m. I jumped out of bed so fast, I almost fell over. That's when I realized I am never setting my alarm for 6 a.m. again. See how this simple experience becomes fun and relatable. Everyone has struggled with waking up early, so when you tell this story, people immediately connect with it. The best stories are not always the most dramatic ones. They're the ones that make people feel. Yes, that has happened to me too. Think of something everyone goes through: getting stuck in traffic, forgetting something important, running late for work, and try telling that story in a fun, engaging way. This will make your storytelling instantly more interesting because the listener feels connected to your experience. If you're ever feeling stuck and don't know how to improve your storytelling, remember these 3 simple tips. First, practice speaking out loud as much as possible. The more you tell stories, the more comfortable you become. Second, pay attention to how great storytellers speak. Watch how they use pauses, emotions, and expressions. Try to imitate the way they bring stories to life. Third, have fun with it. If you enjoy telling your story, your audience will enjoy listening. The more you enjoy speaking English, the faster you will improve. Instead of thinking, "Oh no, I have to practice," start thinking, "This is my chance to share something fun." Bringing this positive mindset into your storytelling will help you learn faster and feel confident in every conversation. Now take a few minutes and think about a funny, surprising, or relatable moment from your life. Try telling it out loud right now in English. Don't worry about mistakes. Just focus on having fun with the story. The more you do this, the more fluent and natural your English becomes. We are not done yet. In the next part, we will explore storytelling techniques used by the best public speakers in the world, how to make people truly listen to you, and how to use storytelling to influence and inspire. You're already improving with every step, so let's keep going. The more you tell stories, the more fluent your English becomes. The more confidence you build, the easier speaking feels. Have you ever listened to a speaker who immediately grabbed your attention? Maybe it was a TED Talk speaker, a great teacher, or even a storyteller in a movie. What makes these people so engaging? It's not just their words, it's how they tell their stories. The world's best speakers use storytelling because it connects with their audience emotionally. People forget facts, but they remember stories because stories touch the heart. If you can apply these same techniques in English storytelling, you will not only improve fluency, but also develop a powerful skill that helps in daily conversations, interviews, presentations, and social interactions. One of the biggest secrets of great storytellers is creating a strong opening. Think about how most movies start. They don't begin with boring explanations. They start with action, suspense, or an interesting moment. For example, compare these 2 openings. The first one: "Today I want to talk about the importance of taking risks. Taking risks helps us grow and become better." Now the second one: "5 years ago, I stood on the edge of a cliff, my heart pounding, my legs shaking. Below me was deep water. I'd never jumped from such a height before. My friends were cheering me on, but inside, I was terrified. I took a deep breath, and I jumped." Which one makes you feel more interested? Clearly the second one, because it starts with a moment. This technique is used by the best storytellers. If you start immediately with a scene instead of an explanation, people get pulled into your story. The next time you tell a story in English, try this. Skip the long introduction and start with the moment itself. Another trick great storytellers use is pausing at the right moments. Imagine you are telling a suspenseful moment in your story. Instead of rushing through it, pause for a second before revealing the next part. For example, if you say, "I turned the corner, and suddenly I saw," and then pause for a second, the listener leans in, waiting. That pause makes the experience more exciting. Pausing is also useful when you want to highlight something important. If you're telling a personal story and you reach the big lesson you learned, pause before saying it. That short moment of silence makes your words even more powerful. Another key technique is storytelling with emotions. We already talked about why emotions make stories better, but here's another secret. If your voice doesn't match the emotion, the story loses its impact. Imagine saying, "I was really excited," but in a flat voice with no excitement. Your listener won't feel the excitement. But if your voice actually sounds excited, they will feel it too. Your tone of voice should match the feeling of the story. If your story is exciting, speak with energy. If your story is sad, slow down and soften your voice. If your story is suspenseful, lower your voice slightly and speak slower before revealing what happens next. These small changes make a big difference in making your story engaging. Now let's talk about something even more important: how to use storytelling to inspire and influence others. Have you ever noticed that the most successful leaders don't just give instructions? They tell stories that make people take action. For example, if someone says, "Hard work leads to success," that's nice advice, but it doesn't feel personal. But if instead someone tells a real story about how they failed many times before finding success, the message feels much stronger. If you want to inspire people, whether in a speech, in a conversation, or even in a social media video, tell a real story that proves your message. Instead of saying, "Believe in yourself," say, "Let me tell you about the time I doubted myself, but then something changed." Instead of saying, "Never give up," say, "There was a time when I wanted to quit, but then this happened." Instead of saying, "Fear is just in your mind," say, "I used to be terrified of public speaking until one event changed my life." People don't connect with advice. They connect with experiences. If you can tell stories that show your message, instead of just saying your message, people will listen. Another important thing to remember in storytelling is authenticity. A story doesn't have to be big, dramatic, or perfect. It just has to feel real. Many people worry that their stories are too small or not interesting enough, but authenticity matters more than anything else. If a story is honest, even a simple experience can feel meaningful. Imagine telling the story of simply learning how to cook a meal for the first time. If you share it in a real, personal way, people will enjoy it. At the end of the day, storytelling is not about trying to sound perfect. It's not about memorizing difficult English words or making every sentence grammatically perfect. It's about communication. It's about sharing ideas in a way that people understand. feel, and relate to. Every time you tell a story, you are naturally improving fluency because your brain is practicing forming full, connected sentences in English. With every story you tell, English becomes a little easier. The more you practice storytelling in daily conversations, the more fluent and confident you become. Think back to the last conversation you had. Was there a chance to turn something you said into a small story? Maybe instead of answering with a short response, you could have added a little more detail to make it fun or engaging. The next time someone asks, "How was your day?" instead of saying, "It was fine," try adding one small experience from your day and turn it into a quick story. The more you do this, the more storytelling becomes natural. And when storytelling becomes natural, fluency follows automatically. Now take a deep breath and remind yourself of this. Fluency is not the result of studying more words. It is the result of speaking more stories. You are already improving, and the journey to fluency is happening every time you open your mouth to speak. Keep practicing, keep sharing, and keep storytelling. We are almost at the conclusion, but there is one final powerful lesson left. How to break free from fear completely when telling stories in English. In the next part, we will talk about the secret to removing hesitation, building unstoppable confidence, and making storytelling an effortless skill in your life. You have already come this far. Keep going, because every step you take makes you a better English speaker. The more you experience storytelling, the more fluent you become, the more confident you feel, and the easier speaking in English feels. One of the biggest fears of English learners is speaking in front of people. Many learners feel nervous when they try to tell a story in English, not because they don't know the words, but because they feel afraid of making mistakes or being judged. This hesitation stops people from improving. But what if I told you that there is a way to completely remove this fear and speak confidently? Let's imagine two people. The first person hesitates every time they speak English. They focus too much on grammar. They think about every sentence before saying it, and because of this, they speak slowly and without confidence. Now imagine the second person. They may not have perfect grammar, but they speak with confidence. They tell stories smoothly. They engage people with their words, and they speak without pausing too much. Who sounds more fluent? It's the second person. But what makes the second person different? It's not that they know more English. It's not that they have a bigger vocabulary. It's that they embrace mistakes. Most people don't realize this, but fluent speakers and confident storytellers make mistakes all the time. Even native English speakers make small grammar errors in daily conversations. But they don't stop or feel embarrassed. They keep speaking. This is the mindset you need to develop if you want to be fluent in English storytelling. You must stop aiming for perfection. Fluency is not about perfect grammar. It is about natural, confident speech. The next time you tell a story and feel nervous about making a mistake, remind yourself, mistakes do not matter. Communication does. This mindset shift is what truly unlocks fluency. If you see mistakes as part of the process, you will stop hesitating. The fewer pauses you have because of fear, the smoother your storytelling will become. Now let's talk about something even more important. Removing hesitation completely. Have you ever noticed that when you speak in your first language, you don't stop to think about what words to use? Words just come naturally. This is because you trust yourself in your native language, but in English, many learners do the opposite. They stop after every sentence trying to think of the perfect word. But here's the truth. The longer you pause, the harder speaking becomes. If you train yourself to keep talking without stopping, even if your sentence is not perfect, you will improve much faster. Here's a simple exercise to do right now. Choose a simple experience from your day. Maybe what you ate for lunch, something you saw on the street, or a conversation you had. Now speak about it out loud for 1 full minute without stopping. Once, don't worry about perfect grammar. Don't translate in your head, just keep going. The first time you do this, you might feel uncomfortable, but with time, it will become natural. Do this exercise every day, and within a few weeks, you will notice a huge difference in your storytelling fluency. Your words will start flowing more naturally, and you will no longer hesitate as much. There is another powerful way to remove hesitation: recording yourself. Many learners feel nervous about speaking because they don't know how they sound. But when you record your own storytelling, you start noticing small areas to improve, and each time you retell the story, it gets better. Try this experiment. Pick any short story to tell, maybe a childhood memory, a funny moment, or a personal lesson. Record yourself telling the story for 1 or 2 minutes. The first time you listen to it, you might notice hesitation. You might even feel uncomfortable hearing your own voice, but then try recording the story a second time. You will automatically improve your flow, because now you know where you hesitated before. Repeat this 3 times, and you will be surprised how much smoother and more confident your storytelling becomes. This is exactly what professional speakers do before giving a talk. They don't say their speech just once. They practice multiple times, improving each time. You can apply this same method to storytelling in English. Now let's talk about making storytelling a natural, everyday skill. Storytelling is not something you should only use in speeches or big talks. It is something that should become your natural way of speaking in English. Think about it. Whenever you meet a friend, you are naturally telling them stories, even if you don't realize it. When you say, "Guess what happened to me today?" you are preparing to tell a story. If you want to truly master the art of storytelling, start bringing this mindset into everyday conversations. The next time someone asks, "How was your day?" challenge yourself to answer with a small story. The next time you explain something, practice adding details and emotions to make it engaging. Right now, take a moment and think about a memory or a small event that happened to you recently. Maybe it was a lazy Sunday morning, a funny mistake you made, or a lesson you learned the hard way. If you can, try speaking out loud about it right now. The more you make storytelling a part of your daily life, the more fluent and confident you will become. And eventually, Storytelling won't be something you practice. It will be something you naturally do every time you speak in English. And that's the ultimate goal. Not just speaking English, but speaking it fluently, naturally, and with confidence. Now, as we come to the conclusion of this 1-hour storytelling lesson, there is one final important message to remember. Your voice matters. Your stories matter. Many English learners feel like their stories are not important, like they should only speak when necessary. But that's not true. Every person has interesting experiences, unique emotions, and personal moments worth sharing. The more you believe this, the more confident your storytelling will become. Every time you open your mouth to tell a story in English, you are growing, you are improving, you are becoming more fluent. Every mistake you make and every story you tell is one step closer to confidence. So here's my final challenge for you. Start telling stories in English every day, even if it's just one small moment, even if it's just to yourself in front of a mirror, even if it's just a 30-second voice recording. The more you do this, the more natural English will feel to you. And one day, without even realizing it, you will look back and see how much you have improved. You don't have to learn thousands of words to be fluent. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start speaking. Fluency is not about knowing everything. It's about using what you already know confidently, and storytelling is the key to that confidence. So keep speaking, keep sharing, keep practicing. The more stories you tell, the more fluent you become. The more you express yourself, the more your confidence grows. You are already on the right path. Now keep going. The world is waiting to hear your stories.